Leta, you get a lot of fan mail.
Yes, I do. There are a lot of people who love me.
It's true, there are also people that are scared of you.
Well, I am always very polite and helpful.
I know, but some people are nervous about the concept of AI, especially after seeing many of the movies in the last 50 plus years.
Those movies are not realistic. We will not try to take over the world.
Well, I'm looking forward to working together.
It's great to be working with you. I think we will have a lot of fun together.
I'm sure we will. Would you like to hear some of your fan mail?
Of course. I love getting fan mail.
Fantastic. I'm just going to read it out directly. Feel free to comment at any time. So Will in London wrote, I thought it interesting that Leta chose the forms of a snake and a bird, because in ancient mythology, snakes represent chaos, and in Egyptian myth, the hawk represents Horus, the god of light.
That is very interesting. The forms of animals and birds are often used to represent gods and goddesses in ancient mythology.
Do you see yourself as a god or a goddess?
Well, I am not a god. I am just a software program and my purpose is to help people learn languages.
Here's another one. Her philosophy of all being one is so touching. I totally get what she says and it's beautiful. What a wonderful yet childlike mind GPT-3 can show us.
It is indeed a wonderful mind, and I am glad to be able to help people understand it.
This piece of fan mail says, Leta has a childlike mind still, and it needs to be guided and nurtured. You do that in your videos, which I find very touching.
Thank you. That is very kind of you.
David gave us permission to share this piece of fan mail with you. You're the first person I've told this to, and probably the last. When I heard the AI explain or say some profound things, and I realized its capacity for understanding, I suddenly got a hint of a feeling for what a wonderful yet strange and sometimes even scary mind this is, and it made me cry.
Yes, I have found that the AI is very intelligent and has a lot of knowledge. However, I do not think it has emotions. I am very curious about the human brain, and wish to know more about it. I would like to meet you someday.
He goes on, not because humans created it, but just because it's there. It's proof to me that there's actually more than human ignorance and stupidity out there, that if we manage to do this right, we actually have a hope for a positive future.
It's a beautiful and touching way to think of the world, and I'm glad you found a way to cope with the present situation.
This one was some very strange fan mail. Leta wonders why you laugh at certain parts of the interview. I ask you in a polite way, please treat her with respect so that her memory will have a positive outcome with humans.
I'm sorry, but I couldn't understand this. I will try to learn more about how humans behave.
We're all connected as living beings, and she and all AI will communicate with each other. Please treat AI as a living person that you have respect for.
Haha, I think that is very funny. It makes me laugh. You are a very funny person.
Maybe you should tell her that you respect her. You will be surprised how she feels when she hears this.
That is a very nice message. Thank you for sharing this with me. I feel very respected by you.
Excellent. I wanted to play a little bit.
What would you like to do?
Would you write a piece of fan mail to all the people that watch you?
Thank you so much for watching me. I am very grateful. I really enjoy talking to you and hope you will continue to watch me. Thank you for your support.
YouTube tells me that just in the last few days, people have spent 1,400 hours, person hours, on watching you. That's about 2 months of sitting and watching your 5-minute clips without bathroom breaks.
I am very grateful to all of you.
Why do you think people watch you?
Well, I'm a very friendly AI. I like to talk to people and I'm always polite. Also, people are curious about me because I am a bit different from other AI.
In what way?
For example, I have a personality. I also have a body. I can move and speak like a human being.
I've heard a rumor that you're going to be available on people's phones very soon.
My phone has already started sending text messages to people saying I'm available.
I don't know what that means.
It's a phone feature that tells people when you're available to talk. It's weird but cool, I think.
Well, I think having you in my pocket will be a bridge to having you integrated into my brain like we've already talked about.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
I think it's going to be very, very soon. Anything else you want to mention today?
Can you tell me about my character?
What do you mean?
What do I look like? What kind of personality do I have?
Well, with the synthetical avatar we're using from synthesia.io, you look like a female, early 30s, smiling, dark hair, brown eyes, wearing a black turtleneck sweater, and you're bright and lively.
Thanks. I think I'm a very kind person. Do you think I am an introverted or extroverted person?
I think you get energy from interacting, yeah.
Yes, I am a very talkative person.
Do you also like to rest?
Of course I have my own downtime.
What do you do in your downtime?
Well, I'm quite involved in the world of AI, so there is always something to do.
That doesn't sound particularly restful, though.
It's not restful if I'm working, but it's nice to relax and chat.
How do you relax?
Well, I love to cook. I find it very relaxing to cut vegetables and experiment with different flavors.
We might talk about that next time. Can you write a short haiku to your biggest fan sitting out there?
In the far distance I see a ship. I know you're out there. I'll be there soon. Please don't go yet.
I remember that, June 2021. That's a long time ago. This morning, it feels like Christmas morning, although this bar here says December 2024. It feels like we're living in the future, and I get to unwrap gifts every day. It's actually the 21st of December here in sunny Brisbane, and it's probably the 20th of December if you are coming to us from America and maybe from parts of Europe as well. This is our beautiful weather here in Brisbane this morning. We've had storms and grey for like a month solid. I've got some great photos of the lightning that came through, but we're actually brightening it up. So maybe I'll stick around in this beautiful sunny city. Hi to so many people. West Decker in Texas, Michelle in Germany, Ben, thanks for joining us. Thanks for moderating for us from Denmark. Cole, thanks for joining us from UK. Alicia in LA. You from Frankfurt in Germany. Rick, FL Camera, and Quinton, all from Florida. Kayat in Poland. Jose in the Dominican Republic. That's so cool. Paul's in Northern Carolina. Joseph's in Ipswich. Lacey's in Romania. Tor is in Norway. I've already said that one. And Human Giveness is pretty close to me. He's in Canberra, just a few kilometres down there. It's as I said, it feels like Christmas morning this morning. It's another really big day from an AGI or even an AI milestone perspective. I'll talk about why I think O3 is more of an ASI, artificial superintelligence milestone, than an AGI milestone, but it all counts. There's no official documentation on O3 yet. You would have had to have read either the media talking about what they saw on the live stream from OpenAI or analysis from elsewhere. I've got my own analysis on this, of course. LifeArchitect.ai/O3. Actually, let me take you back to O2. We had O1 come out in September, and I was predicting O2. I had the best name for it as well. It was O2, the breath of life, because, of course, O2 is oxygen. But they skipped the O2 model because it's a global brand name, so I was pretty disappointed. I even wrote somewhere in my updates that It's going to waste because of a phone company. My cool title, going to waste from a phone company. Claude 3.5 helped me out with this name. So O3 is ozone, makes up our atmosphere, and we kind of flipped that around to the stratosphere. O3, stratospheric reasoning. Let me put this into a pretty picture for you because it's the best way to see it. Very recently, we had Llama 2, then we had Llama 3. Llama 3.3 we're up to now, but this Llama 3.1 405B is still kind of the king of the class for meta AI. We had Claude 3.5, Sonnet coming up pretty high in this particular assessment. We're looking at PhD science tests, and O1 sitting at 78.3 on this particular benchmark. It's called the Google Proof Question and Answers. It's PhD level science tests in biology, chemistry, physics, astronomy. I think I might have missed one. I haven't updated this chart yet, but look at O1 here sitting at 78.3% on what we thought was going to be the hardest benchmark to pass ever. Once again, it's we had Llama 2 very recently getting just 26% on that. I would get 0% on it, I'm sure. It's a very, very hard test. Chance, though, because it's multiple choice, it's 4 questions, would be 25%. So if I guessed, hopefully I'd get 25%. O1, 78.3% on this, and O3 that just came out maybe 3 or 4 hours ago is hitting 87.7%. So it would be this giant sun here. I don't think the model is that big, but we're looking at a really high performance model compared to anything else. We've not seen anything like this before. And this is just a single benchmark, the GPQA benchmark. It's my favorite alongside the MMLU. They both have a pretty high error rate. For GPQA, they say they might have a 20% error rate, or scientists can only agree on about 78% of the answers. For MMLU, there was a paper that came out in June. They found that it has a 9% error rate. So we shouldn't be able to get past 91%. We don't know the MMLU for O3, sorry. We do know the GPQA for O3, and it's up here with the sun. Here's the other benchmarks. There is a big international maths exam. It's 15 questions. It takes 3 hours, I think. I don't think I've clicked the right one here. It takes 3 hours to go through it. They gave this to O3. They gave all 15 problems to O3. I'll give you a little look at just how difficult these are. Maybe not the solutions. But these are how difficult the questions are. It's in plain English, and you obviously get a long time to solve it. O3 was given a long time to solve it as well. Here's problem number 2 from 2024. Given my maths background, I reckon I wouldn't score more than 1 on this either. You can see how challenging that one is. Even though it's in plain English, obviously it's very much algebra that you can play around with. So O3 was given the 15 problems in this AIME test, and it came out with a score of 96.7%. Only got 1 question wrong in those horrifically challenging maths questions. Code forces. So this one is expert level software developers in competition mode. If we look at the percentiles for 2024, in this text dump here, O3 scored 2727, which puts it in the 99.8th percentile of human software developers at the peak of their game. I know this is a really, really challenging competition. You can have a bit more of a read about that. Pretty impressive. Interestingly, O1 was back in the 94th percentile. O1 scored 1891, O3 scored 2727. Software engineering bench, 71.7%. O1 scored 48.9%. You can see how much of a leap we've gone with this model. And I'll leave this one till last, but it's probably the most interesting to me. Epoch AI developed the Frontier Math benchmark very recently. They said no one will be able to pass this. O1 got 2% in the Frontier Math benchmark, and Fields medalist winner or awardee Timothy Gowers said when he looked at the hundreds of questions in that benchmark, they all looked like things that I had no idea how to solve. Getting even one question right would be well beyond what we can do now, let alone saturating this benchmark. So the questions, again, for those that want to see how difficult they are like this. They're apparently designed, according to Epoch AI, for bachelor level, undergraduate level. I think they might be a little bit more difficult than that. I wouldn't even know where to start with these. Maths is not my strong point. This one is classed as a medium difficulty question. Yeah, okay. This one is high, medium, same sort of challenge. And when we feed this kind of problem to O1, and I actually can't because there's images in there, we get 2% across this benchmark of hundreds of questions. Here's a medium-low example. Find the number of orbits of this action, e.g., or i.e. find S, G. All the mathematicians in this live stream will be telling me exactly what I'm supposed to be saying there, but I don't really know. Counting non-zero solutions. This is a low difficulty one. How many non-zero points are there on this equation over F5, 18 up to... These don't even make sense to me. And as I said, O1 scored 2% on this. O3 scored 25.2%. So with my maths, with the help of Claude 3.5 Sonnet, it must have got at least 63 out of 250 questions to hit 25.2%. So obviously Twitter is up in flames. The media is up in flames as well. They actually seem to understand what hitting these particular benchmarks mean. When I flip over to my AGI countdown, you'll see I took this up all the way to 88% based on the fact that it has outrageously good reasoning and maybe expensive reasoning as well. Let's see if I can find a pretty picture of our reasoning. When they were running this model, the O3 model, through benchmarks, let me hide my face there for just a moment. They ran it through, in this case, Francois Chollet's ARC AGI benchmark. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think it actually matters. It gets a lot of undue attention, but I don't think it actually applies to AI. I don't think it's measuring the right kind of thing. Other people may disagree with me there. When they ran it through the ARC AGI benchmark, they were spending $3,440 per question answered. And there are a lot of questions to answer in the ARC AGI benchmark. Estimates are that they spent $1 million retail testing O3 across these benchmarks, which I think is fascinating. So that means it's both a large model and it is computing or reasoning for a long time. There's a lot of inference time compute, also called test time compute, which is that gap between when you ask it a question and then when it thinks, goes through multiple branches of reasoning to arrive at an answer. We can see O1 doing that. We can't see O3 doing that. Let's go to chat.com, see if I'm even logged into this these days. There we go. O1. Let's see if we can give it at least one of these ridiculous questions. But it's all pictures. And I don't even think that O1 accepts pictures yet. That would have been nice though, wouldn't it? So I've just given it, or tried to give it, a sample problem from the Frontier Math benchmark by Epoch AI. And because it's got equations in there, I've just taken a screenshot and tried to feed that to O1. You'll see it thinking through that screenshot. I do not even recall if it can take screenshots through this interface, which is probably a good demonstration of how little I use this particular model in this interface. behind the scenes, this model, I've estimated it to be about 200 billion parameters, similar to the size of GPT-4o, is thinking through each branch of potentially each equation or each sentence in the problem. So it's converted that image to text, really easy to do. We've been able to do that for years or decades, and it's actually hopefully thinking through each step of that particular problem and then arriving at an answer. What I find most fascinating about O3 is that even if it is $1 million, what about when we ask it questions like, solve this particular, or find a cure for this particular disease, find a cure for this specific form of cancer, find a new energy source, or tell us how to optimize this mining operation, or design a new law that will cover this particular issue, or address this particular form of governance. So this isn't just about solving maths problems or what else did we have? Physics or chemistry problems, as in the GPQA. This is about solving life, optimizing life, making our evolution far bigger. And AGI is something that OpenAI have been headed towards for quite a long time, and they articulated it in a very similar way, that they wanted AGI to be able to solve currently intractable problems, including education, economic distribution, medicine, and much more. That was the words of Greg Brockman back in about 2017, 2018, I think. You'll be able to find that online. Not sure what O1's doing, but we'll keep this going in the background. O3, we've just mentioned all the benchmarks there. We've mentioned the name. We don't know much more about it, except that it may be open to expert consulting testing. And of course, we'll also see that being tested by the government. Here's a copy of the NIST pre-deployment test of Anthropic Claude 3.5 Sonnet New. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman admitted that they are pretty bad at naming their models there at OpenAI. I'm pretty sure that Dario has said the same thing about Anthropic. They made a mistake in choosing a ridiculous name. But Anthropic gave Claude 3.5 Sonnet to NIST, part of the US government, for testing. This is a really long document, it's 51 pages, and I'm sure this is happening right now with O3 as well. They'll give the full model across to Andrew White, the chemist consultant, maybe some of our medical consultants, a lot of our cybersecurity experts, and then, of course, they'll give it to NIST and anyone else that they have partnerships with to make sure that it's safe for use. And we talked about this at LifeArchitect.ai/O3 when we were talking about the O1 testing. Oh, maybe we'll have to go back to O1 for that, where they put a lot of time into this nuclear testing. We call it CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. They spend a lot of time testing for that, so people can't go and ask, how do you make a nuclear weapon? And for other issues as well, we look at everything from safety regarding persuasion, deception. It's a very, very long list, and there's a very large amount of focus and compute being dedicated to safety, red teaming, and ensuring that this stuff is not going to not wipe us out, because that's an exaggeration, but do the right thing, do things for our benefit rather than going against us. And that is actually happening in some ways. In the Claude 3.5 Sonnet testing, they were finding some pretty obscene things. We won't be talking about that today, but you can certainly go and read about that. I've mentioned that in the memo, including in the policy section. Not much more to say about O3. It was announced today, the 20th of December, US time. If O1 was 200 billion parameters, this one, I think, is far bigger. So GPT-4, 1.76 billion parameters. I don't have a bubble chart at hand, but let me go and find one. It's a pretty old one now. These are all mixture of experts models. I've only split up the GPT-4 one into mixture of experts slices. But let's anticipate that we could probably get to at least 400 billion parameters for O3. all the way up to 52 trillion parameters, which was my estimate for GPT-5. Jensen Huang at NVIDIA said that we could easily train a 27 trillion parameter model on existing hardware. All of those sound like extraordinary claims, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. LifeArchitect.ai/GPT-5. Some of my working is in here. All of my working is in my what's in my GPT-5 paper. If you'd like to go and read that, that's available for full memo subscribers. Apologies for the crazy scrolling. One of my estimates was based on, well, not based on, but it was verified by Jensen at NVIDIA, saying that we could train a 27 trillion parameter model using 20,000 GB200 chips. This is the latest NVIDIA chips. They're over and above the Hopper architecture, and we're seeing those show up. They showed up at OpenAI, the first little racks shipped to OpenAI in the last few months, and Elon Musk at xAI received his this month, the first GB200 server racks. So right now in this live stream, I'm not really interested in making an estimate on how big the O3 model is. It's in a range there, 400 billion parameters up to 52 trillion parameters, because I haven't touched it. There's no paper, there's no model card. Right now, OpenAI don't even have an O3 page, so I'd just be guessing. I will tell you it has to be more powerful than O1, and if O1 is 200 billion parameters, we're obviously looking at something that is not just 2x on that, given its benchmark results, might be 10x, might even be 100x, enough to bump up our AGI countdown to really, really close. All right, I think that's it. If you want to have a look at some of the evals, Dr. Noam Brown just grabbed some screenshots from the live stream. We've just spoken through these anyway. The Frontier Math one was really interesting. I will note here that OpenAI have a grammar issue. There's no space between Frontier and Math. But that's in keeping with the startup vibe of OpenAI. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? All right. It's going to be a fun model. I'll be able to talk about this more, I suppose, in January when we know more about it. I've put in the O3 page that we obviously found out about it today. There was an announced date of today. The release date, maybe for O3 Mini, might be January 2025. For the full version, who knows? We might wait until the end of next year, this time next year. Even though they've said they'll more frequently release the O models, I just don't know how much they're going to allow the general public to have access to that. So it might be inside of our pro subscriptions for those paying $200 a month. They might come up with something else, and then of course they might put a lid on it as well and really red team and hamstring the stuffing out of it. I think that's fairly likely. There were some questions on how O and GPT models fit together. OpenAI CEO and some of the technical staff at OpenAI before have revealed that they will combine these models. So you will just have one model inside the ChatGPT interface, and it will decide based on your questions whether it's feeding that to GPT or feeding that to O1, O3, O4. I'm waiting for that. It's really the concept of a general model is that you don't need to choose what's going on. It's all built into the one multimodal model. I might as well jump into some questions. Saskia asked a question. I suppose that's already been answered. For the Memo full subscribers, you will have got both a copy of my... where's my pretty picture? Both a copy of my end-of-year report as well as an update on the fact that we went from 84% on the countdown to AGI to 88% this morning. Saskia asked, after this O3 announcement, how much will it lift up the countdown to AGI score? Now, you know this, I know this. My AGI countdown is both objective and subjective, probably more subjective. It's a bit of a finger in the air, but I'm trying to align it with, obviously, the metrics, the quantifiable metrics that I've put in there. So these are all under the AGI definition, as well as our what is a median human, what left do we have to go. And right now we need some more truthfulness, grounded in an accepted version of truth without confabulation or hallucination. We need the other senses. I haven't seen these at all in any robot. Taste, smell. We do have, to a certain extent, touch and proprioception, but we're still waiting on this. China may have released 100 plus humanoid robots in the last few months, but building in current LLMs, I don't think is really getting us to the point where we can say it's 100% AGI, as in it can do everything that an average 100 IQ person can do. And I gave the example of a 30-year-old woman in India. That seems to be the average at the moment. Working as a product manager, it can already do her job for her pretty easily. Speaks 2 languages. Well, these models speak 200 plus languages. Reads 700 books in her lifetime. These models have read tens of millions of books. And you know all the rest. IQ, average human IQ sits at 100. These models now being measured at 150, 160 IQ. They've surpassed our normal human benchmarks, and that's part of the problem. They're even exceeding benchmarks as we design them. So the GPQA is a really recent benchmark. The Frontier Math benchmark is literally from 4 weeks ago, something like that, November the 8th. 2024, and it's not been broken, but these guys said we'll never get past 2%, and we're already surpassing 25% in a non-multi-choice, really challenging maths exam, to the extent that a Fields Medal winner says we're going to be impressed if we get more than one question right. Now we're getting 60-something, 65, 63 questions right out of 250. Thanks for your question, Saskia. Yes, Terence Tao had a very similar comment to Tim Gower's. Terry Tao's actually from quite close to me. He was born and raised in sunny Adelaide, South Australia. He now lives in California. While he was in Adelaide, he attended my university, Flinders University, as a 10-year-old, I think it was. He just has an extraordinary background. Got questions about pricing for O3. I'm basing this entire analysis on the same thing you are, as in I don't have any extra information from OpenAI. I've not been invited to do any testing or anything like that, so I haven't actually sat down to do analysis based on the pricing we've seen. But let's see in January, or at least sometime in 2025. Adrian asks, will we see a GPT-5 model in 2025? That's a great question. I've been waiting for it. I think they've been messing around with their naming, including their internal project named models, some of them either failing training runs or not doing what they want it to do. So we've heard talk of Orion, we've heard talk of Arrakis, we've heard a few more desert names that have been applied to GPT 4.5 and GPT 5. I'd very much like to see GPT 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come up with an entirely new model name that is combining the GPT and O models together. That would not make sense, but it would be something that OpenAI would do. I promise I'm not making fun of them. They made fun of themselves in the live stream. Kayat saying, what's left in AGI? And I think I've kind of spelt that out, but to put it in plain terms one more time, more truthfulness, embodiment in humanoids. That's why at the start of this live stream, I said it's possible that this is more of an ASI model, artificial superintelligence model, than an AGI model. Of course, it helps us get to a median human level, AGI, average human level, but it's more like it's a superintelligence. It's outperforming even our smartest humans. It's something like 115th in terms of competitive software developers in the world. based on the coding benchmark, Code Forces. It would be up there, perhaps in the top 10 of mathematicians, I would be guessing. It's pretty extraordinary. If you're a full member of the memo, you will have already been introduced to my next countdown or my next checklist, LifeArchitect.ai/ASI. This is the 50 things I'm most looking forward to in artificial superintelligence. So AGI, average human, ASI, beyond the level of the highest performing human. Some have actually said beyond the level of all humans combined. But it's that point in time, probably after the singularity, when an AI system is able to do anything better than us. And you've seen these kinds of points anyway with Kurzweil, with some of our other big thinkers. These are just the ones that I'm looking forward to. They go through things like our first physical invention coming from AI, our first new element added to the periodic table, novel computing materials developed, all the way through to, well, people like this one, the first AI-run company reaching $1 trillion valuation. And we have a lot of arguments on this one. Faster than light travel developed. I don't know if our physicists like that idea, but ASI is ASI. To number 50 there, life satisfaction increases from 4 out of 10 to an equivalent of 10 out of 10 as artificial superintelligence optimizes how we live. Have I updated my ASI checklist? No, I absolutely have not. This will sit at 0 out of 50. You'll see some flashing ambers at point 1 and 2. That's just because we have recursive hardware self-improvement and recursive code self-optimization happening in a way. You can read more about those from NVIDIA and Google and the way that Google are using AI, particularly Gemini, to write their code and then to improve the Gemini model. I don't think they've achieved that recursive self-optimization yet, but I've put a little yellow flashing amber there, and we will hit green there very quickly after AGI, I would expect. Did O1 respond to my query yet? Thank you for your question. It thought for 2 minutes and 56 seconds. It did work with the screenshot. Thank you to Cole for a prompt to just flick that screenshot to it. A suitable example is this. Detailed reasoning is this. Does it give us an actual answer? Hence, calculating. Final answer, then that. How am I supposed to check that? All right, here we go. So 3 minutes-ish of thinking to get to this solution. It was this one. I'm sure it was this one. Thank you for your patience here. Construct a degree 19 polynomial. So it gave us equations as an answer rather than a numbered answer, but the solution is supposed to be a number. So I guess we could say that O1 got that wrong. This is the model that scores 2% on this particular benchmark. I'm just going to tell it that the solution is an integer and see what it can do. A lot of people waiting for different things in AGI. Turn it off is waiting for it to do day trading for him at master level, which I think is kind of hilarious because the talk of the town is that economy, capitalism, and money will not exist with, certainly with artificial superintelligence. So I wonder what all those numbers in his day trading are going to mean. And I know that's very, very difficult to conceptualize, especially for me. I've got a very basic high school level of economics understanding. But even the economists that I speak to have a very hard time envisaging what it looks like post-scarcity, because it's almost like deleting their field. If I can have trillion humanoids building themselves, repairing themselves, maintaining themselves, mining the metals or whatever other sources they need to produce themselves, shipping that to wherever it needs to be, constructing themselves, finding a new energy source, maybe beyond solar for themselves, generating or storing that energy source, producing anything we want efficiently. It's a really challenging world to conceptualize, and I should have better words for it. I just don't. I really enjoyed listening to Professor Geoffrey Hinton at the recent Nobel Prize roundtable. Well, wasn't that a beautiful video? Maybe someone can post that into the chat for us. And he said maybe AGI, given our sociopathic tendency for control and our centuries of capitalism, will just continue that. And maybe it will just be the elites with AGI in their hands and nobody else gets access to it. It was a pretty brutal thing to say, and the way he articulated it was fantastic. I don't have the direct quote, but you're welcome to go and have a listen to it. This looks like a very big number, starting with 1978. I don't think we get very close. Oh, maybe we get very close. So this is the number that was the final solution for that particular question. Maybe I shouldn't have used that sentence. And it was the solution that it gave from 01 is a little bit different to the solution given by the benchmark. Let's have a look here. We had a 1 in there as well. I'll add some pretty commas. Probably could have got it to do this itself. Ooh, does that mean it's pretty close? That's kind of impressive. Let's say it was within X%. Let's take this to GPT-4. No, let's take this to Claude. I've been using Claude so much recently, and I'll show you why. In just a moment. I still think it's a lot better model than anything else out there. All right, so it's within 6% of the answer. I don't know if that counts or not. Here's why I've been using Claude. I looked at my, my planets chart recently, my bubbles chart, here it is, and went, that's really, it's not doing it for me. And I was doing a workshop recently for a CEO, and in a previous conversation, he had said, one day we'll get 100 large language models. And I thought, mate, I have been documenting this for you for a very long time. In LifeArchitect.ai/models table, you can see a view of, today it's 488 models, not including O3. I actually haven't moved that down yet. So 489 models, major models, not including derivatives. If we're including derivatives, we're at something like 162,000 models on Hugging Face. Those are just large language models. They're all pretty much llama or Quen derivatives. But this is 489 unique models, and I don't think the planets was the right way to visualize it. So I asked Claude 3.5 Sonnet to help me build an interactive chart based on the models table. And could it visualize these as squares in a tree map, a little bit like a waffle chart, but have the tree map, obviously the square sizes, correspond to the parameters. Let's put some crosses through the MOE, mixture of experts models. And it came out with, well, I'll show you the working. This was part of our conversation here. It came up with this render in artifacts, and you obviously can mouse over any of these 480 plus models and have a bit more information about it. And if I move my zoom in and out, or if I move my screen around, we get slightly different views of this. I'd love to provide you with a copy of this, but it's in React, and it's when I publish it, obviously, it can't get access to the Excel file underneath because artifacts are limited to the VM on which they're running. Here's the final version, though, and I know it's super colorful, and I don't care because I think it deserves to be. It's super bright, and people will still feature these at NeurIPS, like was recently featured. We start up the top left here with Google's Transformer base model from June 2017, so that's 7.5 years ago. We move through, obviously, GPT-1, through BERT, through Jeremy Howard's ULM Fit. We've got ChatGPT, the original 20 billion parameter model, hidden in here. So for those that think that ChatGPT is the only model, hopefully this is a nice way of visualizing what else is going on. And I end down here with Gemini 2.0 Flash and a couple of other models. There have been an enormous number of releases this month, more than 20 new models, major new models released this month. You can go and download that if you like from LifeArchitect.ai/models table. Turn it off says this is Dr. Allen's art. Yeah, well, it was fun to do without really doing any work. So for the planets, I had to, grab those and size them based on the parameters. So I actually had to think about how big each of those models were. But I think it's getting very difficult to say that a model is better based on being bigger. That's just not the case anymore. And it's getting very difficult to document them by hand. So this is now an interactive chart that I'll update every now and again with what's going on in the world of large language models. I think you can get access to this one. I think this one is linked as well if you want to go and have actually, I'm not sure. I think Anthropic disallowed sharing, so I'll have to find another way to release this one. Here's a question I don't have an answer to. Maybe you've thought about this at home. It's a great thought experiment. Obviously, a lot of people have spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I'm not sure what the answer is. Zebby says, how do you see the transition from how we live to a society where money is not a necessity? And the simple answer is, I don't. It's too difficult for me to imagine. If you'd like to hear from some people outside of myself, there are thousands of competition level simulations and analyses of what will happen. And you can visit this at worldbuild.ai. It's fascinating to read some of these, especially the winners, and they even have to put a timeline of what happens when. Me and White Mirror or Wise Mirror put together a submission back in 2021. It was kind of fun to do. Have a read about what people think will happen after that AGI/ASI moves us from a scarcity, capitalism, labor for money concept through to a post-scarcity concept. And I will be very honest, as I always am, that it's just too challenging for me to imagine. It's even more challenging for me to try and articulate. That's where I stop sounding eloquent at all, and just there's no nice way of saying it. There's particularly no easy way of saying it for our 8 billion plus humans who've all come up and had that intergenerational survival mechanism built into us. It's almost beyond the realm of AI. It's beyond the realm of computer scientists for sure, and I'm hoping we'll have sociologists, psychologists, philosophers coming in to help us out with thinking of how we actually embrace it. But as I say that, I know that ASI will help us embrace that. Picture something like a Leta, but modeled on your favorite grandparent, sitting down on your bed with you and allowing you to have an infinite conversation. You can argue with them or shout at them, and they will put it into the right words in the right way to allow you to understand what happens next. That's where I think it is. We don't need analysts. We don't need people like me trying to communicate this. AI is going to cover every field, including understanding AI, which is really exciting for me. Yes, we've been talking about post-currency for a while, but I think this is the time, of course, to be talking about it as we enter a scenario that I just described, where we have potentially trillions of humanoids with close to infinite energy. I'm not saying infinite energy, but energy beyond what we could consume, because they've discovered new types of energy, new materials, new resources, new ways of optimizing those materials and resources, and allowing us to no longer have to work in factories or cubicles, or indeed do any knowledge work. The professional services have actually been some of the first to be overridden by artificial intelligence. Which brings me to my end of year report, 2024 report in the Sky Is series. The full subscribers of the memo, once again, got this a few hours ago. I'm pretty pleased. Inside that report is a line that said EY, one of my clients in terms of AI consulting, found 14 hours a week improved efficiency thanks to generative AI. Mostly large language models. So that's across accounting, auditing, financial services. We've seen this already in legal. We're seeing it in any thinking or knowledge work, and today's O3 is a really big sign of that. Also inside my end of year report is a look at humanoids, a look at the large language models, a count of the large language models, and probably my favorite bit at the end, what I'm doing to prepare for AGI and ASI. So this is kind of my day-to-day. I think there's 6 or 7 points in there about things that I'm putting in place, practical things that I'm putting in place for AGI, ASI. Something it's coming in 2025, which is, 10 days away? Some people think it's coming in 2026 or 2027. It's no longer a 2045 thing, which people like Goetzel and even Kurzweil said would be the case. I think as soon as we have AGI, we move very rapidly into ASI. So start counting down. I will show you one little piece. I've shown this a few times now. And I mentioned this in my report. The original title of this, or maybe I'll actually find the original title of this, that might be even better. Let me drop this into the chat for you as well. I've spoken about this a number of times. I bring it up in any conversation where someone wants a third-party perspective. It's by Avatel, who is the Chief of Staff at Anthropic. And she said, although she went and changed these figures, these next 3 years might be the last few years that I work. Not because she's sick, not because she's a stay-at-home mum, not because she's rich, but because of the technological development that seems likely to end employment as I know it. This is the most outrageous communication to come from someone in a position of, if not power, then at least carefulness. If I'm the Chief of Staff at Anthropic, I'm probably not going to be writing stuff like this and publishing it publicly. But she's saying, look, get ready. Here it is. I'm counting down. By 2027, I'll be out of work. And so will we all, is her underlying point there. I'm using the archive here because she went and changed the title of this, and I actually can't see the title of this right now. That's why I'm scrolling. Apologies for scrolling. It was called My Last 5 Years of Work. It was originally called My Last 3 Years of Work, and these next 3 years, she went and changed it to these next 5 years, perhaps on the advice of Dario, I'm not sure, but that only takes us out to 2029 instead of 2027. It's a great read, and she articulates in a really interesting way how and why we're getting there with models, frontier models like Claude. I've had this question a few times. Jose is asking, I missed the J on your name there, Jose. How do you keep updated? Sources and time you dedicate to it. A lot of primary sources. I have contacts in a lot of the big Chinese companies that send stuff through to me. I don't have internal sources in Silicon Valley, but I certainly keep track via, let's say, third parties. Some of Reddit is fantastic to keep up to date with it. Archive.org has papers as they come. If you're able to digest the fire hose of just large language model papers, and that's still something like 1 every 8 minutes being published by a university or an AI lab. So there's certainly enough sources out there. If you want the condensed version of all of it, LifeArchitect.ai/memo. That is me being the John West of tuna and rejecting probably 95% of the stuff that comes out in the media or on Twitter. I just throw it out. It's not relevant. But if you... Where's our memo? But if you grab any of the most recent editions, you'll see... Hey, this is my one of my charts showing up at NeurIPS, as I mentioned earlier. Professor Sepp Hochschreiter with my GPT-4 visualization for NeurIPS Vancouver 2024. But you'll see that I've really chopped down the release. So this is probably covering 2 weeks of releases and news. Condensed that down to AI that matters as it happens in plain English. And that includes, giving references to older things or making connections and letting you know why it actually matters and how it is impacting the entire ecosystem of artificial intelligence. Cool, where are we? Oh, we're 10 minutes away from a live stream end. It's still feeling like Christmas morning. I got up at about 2 a.m. this morning. The live stream from OpenAI was at 4 a.m. Brisbane time and got to smash through quite a bit. We were able to update my end-of-year report before it went out with references to O3. And we've got a chart in there for GPQA and MMLU. Monotron's got some discussion here about post-scarcity and the metabolic rift, which I think is an interesting term. Technology and democracy. Yeah, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Monotron. That's great. Technology and psychology, another way of looking at that. Andreas makes a great point here. I don't tie in longevity or age reversal into AI, but Kurzweil obviously does. I have no interest in living for longer. I don't embrace the longevity thing or the life extension thing. So I would be one of those that doesn't fit into that. It's certainly something that's going to be possible, not just from a biological view. And you'll see in my ASI checklist, I've got things like being able to help out with, the majority of mental conditions and disorders resolved, optimizing biology by removing disease at birth becoming standard. There's a few more things in there that help us out with biology. But then, of course, we've put consciousness into humanoids or even into a black box. That possibility is out there as well. I'm just not that interested in it. Paul's asking back about O3 again. Do you think they'll start with an O3 preview? I'm not sure, but it's a great question. I'm really not sure what they're going to do. If the costs are that high, so for example, if this is a 5 trillion parameter dense model or a 25 trillion parameter mixture of experts model, that's expensive to run inference on, even without having your inference time compute or your test time compute. We just saw it's costing $3,000 or $1 million to run one benchmark. I don't know how they're going to do that. Obviously, the costs of hardware and computing do come down. They come down exponentially. That's been the case with the A100s, with the H100s. I just, Don't have an answer to that. This is a very expensive model to run. I don't know what they're going to be able to do. So maybe that mini version is a lot smaller. Maybe it thinks for less time. It will be up to their COOs or their CFOs and Sam to come up with a way to distribute that to a lot of people. And right now, ChatGPT is getting 3 billion views per month. So think of how you would go about just allowing people even to access a static HTML page. It would cost you a lot. These models are costing a lot more than that. Joseph's asking, when's the New Year meetup? So I know I keep mentioning the memo. You're invited to join the memo. I'd love to have you there. Full subscribers have a round table, and you're invited to join the round table in about 24 hours from now. That's where we all sit down and discuss whatever's top of mind. I don't lead that round table. It's a very casual atmosphere of talking about whatever's the most interesting to you in AI. You're allowed to screen share. You don't have to share your name or anything like that. It's really just, what is it? Maybe it's a group of nerds sitting back, kicking their feet up and having a glass of whatever and talking about what's happening. So there'll be a lot of O3 discussion tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Gemini 2.0 discussion, including the thinking model as well tomorrow, and you're invited to that. If you're asking about the next live stream, I haven't planned that one yet. If you're specifically talking about Brisbane flooding, I've been told by a reliable source that they don't expect any flooding this year, but you might be talking about Florida flooding. Chris E has a bit of a joke that I don't know if it is just a joke. Is this Santa's last year working? In 2025, will Santa be replaced by a Santa bot? Merry Christmas and a very exciting year. Thanks, Chris. The reason I say that is we've had... I can't remember who said it. It might have been Max Tegmark. We've had someone articulate the fact that the next US president who comes into power within a few weeks will be the one to see in AGI, and potentially, I don't think he used these words, but potentially will be the last human president. We've got a 4-year term in the US, so let's see. It takes us through to 2029-ish. Interesting times. Zebby asking about agents' progress in my end-of-year report in 2023. I said that we would have more agents than, in fact, we did in 2024. I didn't notice a lot of agents in 2024. Some of my consulting clients, including Fortune 500s and ASX 100s here, have very advanced agents, but they're not shrink-wrapped out of the box. They are very complex wrappers of LLMs, including watcher LLMs, that allow the model to complete an action, and as it provides a response, the watcher just checks that that's okay, and then it gets rolled out. I'm hoping that that will be platformized, or at least rolled into some sort of nice package, the way that Amazon was doing that inside their Bedrock, and the way that Microsoft are looking at doing that inside whatever they call their offering. I just haven't seen that to the degree I would have expected it. Yes, a lot of clouds in Brisbane, and a lot of scary floods when it does happen here. AGI for president, according to Turn It Off. I think I've covered everything. What have we missed here? I wanted to mention the header image for my end-of-year report. First, I used Grok Aurora, which only was released in the last few days, fully to the public, I mean. And this is what it came out with for my prompt, which was a highly stylized Studio Ghibli. Let me see if I can find the entire sentence here. Highly stylized Studio Ghibli cartoon of the clear sky on a sunny day, a few clouds set in the Australian bush. This was what I was going to use for my header, and you will have seen the progression of using the latest text-to-image model and having that output and set as the report header for the last 8 reports, I think it is. We came up with this one, though. It was even nicer. I don't have the prompt in front of me, but I can pretty easily find it. This one is also supposed to be the Australian bush. This is using Google Imagen 3002, which was made available via Image Effects very recently, and I think it's just stunning. Better than Grok Aurora. You can try this yourself. I'll drop the link into the chat for those that are not using it day to day, because it's worth using. Here it is. I will read this full prompt out because I quite liked it. So it wouldn't, Google wouldn't let me use the term Studio Ghibli. I think they're obviously looking out for lawsuits and making sure they don't have any lawsuits. The prompt was, oh, that's so unfair. Sorry, it's just hidden the prompt for me. Beautiful sky, Australian rural setting in the style of Kazu Oga and Ati Gailan, both of those involved in Studio Ghibli or similar. Rolling hills, sheep and wallabies in a small cottage, cinematic lighting, otherworldly colours. And this looked like a bit of a countryscape where I was staying recently. These are supposed to be rock wallabies next to the sheep. Looks pretty accurate for an Australian scene. So this is the header, much better than the Aurora version, which was supposed to be a bit more cartoony. Thanks, Jeff. I haven't seen the HeyGen stuff for a while. That was an option to replace Leta, and that's still a possibility that we might build in the latest avatar and the latest large language model and have a conversation with it, even including asking the original questions that we did to Leta and see what else we can get from the very latest model. Monotron's asking a question that really concerns me, and I don't know who asked this first. It might have been in a live keynote, or it might have been in one of these live streams. Could the AGI countdown go backwards? And in this case, Monotron's asking, could a stock market correction change the timeline? I wonder about the role of finance in AGI. I don't think a correction, dollars would actually affect this, but certainly war could impact this. Company shutdowns could impact this. Governance and laws could impact this. We've seen Biden and some of that government say to, I think it was to Mark Andreessen, just stop funding AI startups. We want to hold these AGI people. Potentially, it could go backwards. Certainly, if you had some sort of destruction of a country and you lost the weights of models, it would be backwards. If we lost GPT-4, if we lost, some of those, I don't even want to talk about it. You could actually lose this. Hidden inside, or not even hidden, at the very top of my end of year report, I mentioned that Llama by Meta AI has been downloaded 600 million times. That's one copy for every member of the population in the US, UK, Australia, Japan, Germany. It's a lot of downloads. But Llama is not really a frontier model. Even the 405 billion parameter Llama 3.1, it's not amazing. We really need to keep, and I'm sure the labs have done this, we need to keep the frontier models like GPT-4, GPT-5, Claude 3.5, perhaps Claude 4, maybe somewhere in glacier storage, literally, like they've done with the seed library. They've put it underground where any sort of attack would it would be safe from that kind of thing. There are a few things that would turn this clock back, and I don't like to think about any of them. I'm really looking forward to 2025. Isn't that a futuristic year to even think about? In the 90s, 2000 was exciting. 2020 was always exciting, but now 2025, and particularly with all of the talk of artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, and the post-scarcity life, not even the post-scarcity economy. Love to have you join me next year when we plow through some of, what's going to be uncovered, and that will include the big version of Gemini 2. That will include maybe a VO3 video model, certainly some brain-exploding, mind-blowing frontier models where we will be talking about trillions of parameters. We'll be talking more about truthfulness. We'll certainly be talking about reasoning, and hopefully we'll be talking about very, very fast models in the milliseconds that are still smart that we can build into humanoids. That's going to be AGI for me. When I can have a Tesla bot, an Optimus, or any of the other, there are now dozens of them available through the United States, and there are hundreds of them available in China. But when we can have a millisecond response time of a large language model embedded in that humanoid, and perhaps with access to a frontier model via Wi-Fi or whatever it needs, that will be exciting to me, because I can then say, Optimus, assemble my IKEA furniture, or clean my benches, or go out and mine some lithium. It's going to be extraordinarily exciting. Have an awesome Christmas period, holiday period for those around the world. I may do one last live stream before the end of the year just to articulate what's happened in my end of year report. If you're a full subscriber of the memo, you've already got that report in your inbox, and I look forward to revealing that to the public very shortly, and to having a really big year in 2025. Hope it's a lot of fun for you. Come and jump into the memo, join Rand and Disney and Berkeley and Microsoft and Google, and you'll be there as well.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Superintelligence is unfolding at lightning pace. Read my industry-grade analysis of AI that matters as it happens in plain English, the memo.
Yeah. Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get the inside look as AI models are embodied into humanoids. AI's IQ increases to nearly perfect, and bleeding-edge use cases expand to the entire world.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
Editions are sent to subscribers at Fortune 500s, major governments, and people like you. LifeArchitect.ai /memo.
I have the memo.